All right, we've got our TIU connected between the transformer and the track. I have two MTH Protosound 2 locomotives on the track. Now, when I turn on the power to the track, nothing happens. What's going on here? Why didn't the trains move? They didn't even light up. The lighted lock-on shows I've got power on the track, but nothing's moving. Right from the start, you can see that command control is a little different from conventional mode. These locomotives aren't moving because I haven't told them to move yet. In the command mode, locomotives don't get their instructions from the track voltage like in conventional mode. They get their instructions from this, the DCS remote control. You actually communicate directly with each individual Protosound 2 locomotive on the track, even though they're in the same block on the same track. Look at the LCD screen on the remote. There's one of our locomotives listed right there on the screen. That means it is the active engine. Remember that term, active engine. If I roll the thumb wheel up on the remote, that engine starts to move. This engine is running without sound, which is a feature of the DCS system. You can actually run your engines without the sound systems turned on if you want to. This could be a good idea if you want to run your trains late at night when the rest of the family might be asleep. But we all know that sound adds to the fun. So let's turn on the sound system in this engine. It's very easy. In fact, it's only one button on the remote. All I do is press the number 3 key, which is also labeled Startup, and watch what happens.
Go ahead, 9654. We're ready to go.
The locomotive's sound system starts up and the lights come on. What about our other locomotive? All I have to do is press ENG to see my list of engines, use the thumb wheel to select the one I want, and press it. Now you can see our other locomotive shows up in the LCD screen as the active engine. Now if I press Startup, the sound system in this engine starts up. Now, both engines are up and running in the command mode with their sound systems turned on. I have complete and separate control over each individual engine in command mode, even though they're both on the same section of track. I can control their speeds, blow the whistle, ring the bell, and use all the other neat features that are available in the command mode. So, what have we learned? We've learned that in the old conventional mode of operation, we had no way to control engines separately if they're on the same track. The engines all get their instructions from the track, and since they're all on the same track, they all get the same instructions whether we want them to or not. In command mode, we found that we can control each engine separately, even though they're on the same track. And that is the fundamental difference between conventional and command modes of operation. With command control, you run the engines, not the track. When you operate your MTH Protosound 2 locomotives in command mode, there are some additional features available in these locomotives that you can control from the handheld remote. For example, you can turn the smoke on and off from the remote with the push of a button. When you turn the smoke off, it happens almost instantaneously. When you turn it back on, it'll take a moment for the smoke unit to heat up to operating temperature so that there's always a slight delay before you see the smoke start when you turn it on. You can control the volume of the sound system with this button, the 2 and 5 buttons, like this. You can turn the headlight on and off. However, you can only turn the headlight on and off when the locomotive is stopped. You can start the passenger and freight announcement sounds by pushing this button. This feature will be a lot easier to show you when we get out on the layout. That's also true for the Doppler effect button. This is a really neat effect that I'll show you a little later when we get out to the layout. This button, marked Read, is a powerful function. When you press Read, the system searches for all available TIUs and AIUs in the system. It also refreshes the active engine list. If a locomotive has been previously set into the remote and it's on the track, the remote will automatically move it to the active engine list when you push Read. If a programmed locomotive is not on the track, pushing the Read button will automatically move it to the inactive engine list. Now we'll talk a little bit more about the Read button and the active and inactive engine lists a little bit later. Before we go on to the layout, I want to show you some things on the TIU that you should know that we haven't talked about yet. The TIU has to have power in order to work, and it can be powered two different ways. It can be powered via the fixed-in 1 channel. If you connect a transformer to this channel, as we did here, you're okay. However, there is a better way to power the TIU. You can also power the TIU by plugging a small AC transformer into this plug. Any small transformer that can provide around 18 volts AC at an amp or so will work here. The current draw for the TIU itself is not very high. The power brick from a Z500 or a Z750 is ideal for use here. Radio Shack also sells a great little transformer that works fine here. It's Radio Shack part number 273-1690. This power pack can be switched between 18 or 24 volts AC. Set it to the 18 volt setting if you use it to power your TIU. The power pack can be used with several different types of plug adapters. You will need the type M adapter, and it's free with the power pack. This little thing is only $15.99 at Radio Shack. It's a good idea to power the TIU with a separate power supply for several reasons. Let's say you're running trains using the fixed-in 1 channel, and you have a derailment that creates a short and trips the breaker in your transformer. If you're powering the TIU via the fixed-in 1 connection, the TIU shuts down when the breaker trips because it's no longer getting any voltage from the transformer. If the TIU shuts down, the DCS signal is no longer being put into the track, so you have no control over the other engines that may be running on the layout at that time. In addition, if you're using the variable output channels on the TIU, they shut down. So any trains running on those channels will stop too, whether you want them to or not. In this situation, getting everything reset back to normal can be a real problem. However, if you power the TIU from this jack with a separate small transformer, you will always have control over the layout no matter what happens. If you get a short that trips a breaker in a transformer feeding the fixed-in 1 channel, the only thing that happens is the track power to that section of the railroad shuts down. The TIU itself is still running, and you still have control over any trains powered by other TIU channels. Let's take a closer look at the TIU because it has a few features we haven't talked about yet. Notice that it has 4 channels for track power. 2 of them are fixed, 2 of them are variable. Now what does that mean? Let's talk about the fixed channels first. On the fixed channels, whatever voltage you put in here comes out here to go to the track on the output side. The voltage does not change within the TIU. These channels are normally used for command-only operation. However, there is a way to make them variable, and I'll show you how to do that when we get out to the layout. These channels out on the ends are the variable channels. The only difference between the fixed and the variable channels is that on the variable channels, the voltage to the track can be changed inside the TIU using the DCS remote. The DCS command signal is present on all 4 of these outputs. For those of you that are familiar with the Lionel Trainmaster system, the variable channels have the equivalent of a Power Master or a TPC 3000 built into the TIU. That means you can use these channels to vary the track voltage so you can run your conventional locomotives with the DCS remote. It's a way to put the throttle handles of your transformer in the palm of your hand with the DCS remote. Each channel can handle up to 12 amps or 190 watts of power, and you can power these channels with almost any transformer. A Lionel Powerhouse works fine here. Now, I know that's a lot of information, and believe me, we're just getting started. Let's go out to the layout, where I can show you even more features of the DCS system. Before we start putting the DCS system through its paces, I want to show you a couple of unique features of this DCS remote control. Let's take a look at the thumb wheel first, because it actually does two things. When you roll it like this, it changes the speed of your train, or it chooses selections within feature menus, which we'll get to in just a minute. And when you press it like this, the thumb wheel becomes a select button, which is also used in the various feature menus. Getting a feel for using this thumb wheel, rolling and selecting, may take a little getting used to, but once you master it, you'll find it is very, very easy to use. There are 4 main DCS menus, and they're all set up basically the same way. The menus are Sound, Control, System, and Advanced. Within each menu is a list of the features controlled by that menu, and within each feature, you can select the option for that feature. Wow. Options, features, menus, it all sounds pretty complicated, but it really isn't. All the menus are set up the same basic way. So once you understand how one menu works, you'll understand them all. Let's take a look at the sound menu first, because it's probably the easiest one to understand, and it's probably the one you'll use the most. When you use one of the menus, you are usually going to be changing something related to a specific locomotive. So before you do anything with any of the menus, you should make sure that the engine you want to work on is set as the active engine. To do that, make sure the engine's on the track and powered up. Press the engine button, scroll to the engine you want, and press the thumb wheel. That's all there is to it. This SW1500 is now the active engine, and it shows up on the screen. You get into the menu system by pressing the menu button right here. When you press it, you'll see the 4 main menus listed in the LCD screen. Press the thumb wheel to select the sound menu. Here's what the sound features look like on the screen. Notice that I just scroll the thumb wheel to move between each of these features. When I get to the one I want, I just press the thumb wheel to select it. I'm going to select the bell volume. Notice that as soon as I pressed the button, the bell turned on. And now I have this display on the LCD screen. This shows me how loud the bell is by showing me a horizontal bar graph and a number representing the relative volume of the bell. With DCS, you can actually control the volume of all the different sounds in any Proto Sound 2 locomotive. You can adjust the volume of the bell separately from the horn and other engine sounds. That means you could set a locomotive to have a very soft bell and a very loud horn or whistle if that's what you want. Once you set the sound volume where you want it, press the thumb wheel to select that volume level, and that's it. This bell has just been reset to a different volume. You use this same procedure to set the volume of the engine sounds, whistle volume, and accent sounds. The engine sounds are the steam chuff or diesel roar, and the accent sounds are the voices that are part of the sound system. This basic concept of choosing a menu, selecting the feature, and then setting the option for that feature is how all the various DCS menus work. We're going to do that many times before this video is over, as we look at all the other features of DCS. Remember when I ran those 2 locomotives on the circle of track in the shop? Their names appeared in the active engine list on the LCD screen on the remote. Well, how did they get there? I used the remote control to put them there. Let me show you how I did that, because it's really very easy, and it's something you'll do whenever you add a new locomotive.